Hello, guys. Welcome to Indiana Sports Connection. I am your residential anchor, Aaron. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for being part of this Indiana Hoosiers and Colts community. Well, I got absolutely duped yesterday, and I'm going to tell you the story about how it happened, really, because I uploaded my video, and normally I spend the first hour or two after I upload the video responding to your comments. Many comments were coming in saying, Luke Goode coming to Indiana, all this stuff. And so I started looking on, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, which is it crazy, like how Twitter has changed its name from Twitter to X, and now everybody just calls it Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. I mean, I feel like Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it, that's what the new name should be. But anyway, there's some joker on there, and he must have retweeted it with some other people's names, because I saw some people's names were on maybe some burner accounts or whatever, and it was being, retweeted on there with this big committed thing underneath it. And then also there's Illinois Sports Talk put that out too, and all these people were saying Luke Goode coming to Indiana. Well, it's absolutely not true, so I apologize about that. I made a short video, and I shot it just outside my house, and I come in the house, and I kind of lay down and close my eyes. I go back. I wake up about 30 minutes later, and then I start searching for this stuff again, and I'm like, oh, my gosh, I made a huge mistake. So I apologize to you out there. I should have – when I uploaded the video, I have about 15 minutes between the short uploading, and I was going to go on there and redo my stuff, and I fell asleep, and so that's what happens. So thank you so much for joining me. That was definitely a learning experience, and I just can't believe somebody on, I don't see what the benefit of somebody on X. I know people want to get the information first and all of this stuff, but I don't see the reason why somebody makes a fake post and a fake thing. And I don't know if it's a fake name, because I went back to his site, but it all looks like he's a legitimate reporter and everything. But who knows how some of this stuff happens. But today we got a lot of stuff to talk about. We're going to talk about Luke Goode. He is coming in Thursday. Let's just talk a little bit about how that's going to go. But first, if this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button down below. I am your residential anchor, Aaron. We are almost to 1,000 subscribers, so we got a couple of big giveaways coming up. I think we need 152 to get to 1,000 subscribers. So like the video, share the video. I appreciate it so much. I never, ever thought that this channel would do anything or get to 1,000 subscribers or anything like that. Less than 7% of all YouTube channels ever get to 1,000 subscribers. So I thank you, the Hoosier fans out there that leave your comments and share the videos. I appreciate it so, so much, because this is just a dream. Responding to your comments is just a lot of fun, and just the amount of things I've learned about basketball. And because some of the stuff we're going to talk about today has to do with, we'll talk about a little bit more about the three-point shooting. We'll talk a little bit more about the Pacers as well, and we'll transition into that, about how the NBA game is. And this is the time of year when I do start to watch the NBA playoffs, and especially with the Pacers playing tonight at Milwaukee at 8:30, that is going to be a must-win game. I know it's not a must-win game, but people like to call even games that aren't must-win games. But I think for the Pacers, they have to show up, and really, really, Halliburton is going to have to play like he is the best player out there. Now, Siakam, no, I know from watching, Siakam played on the Great North team. He played on the Raptors when the Raptors won the championship. So I watched him a lot during that, and I know he's got a lot of experience, but Milwaukee has a lot of experience as well. So thank you so much for joining me today. And we are talking about, so let's talk a little bit about the Luke Goode coming to Indiana on Thursday. and what that is going to be. Let me pull the article up here. So Luke Goode, he is from Homestead High School, a 6'7" forward from Fort Wayne, Indiana. Luke Goode, he played 3 seasons for the Fighting Illini, and he averaged 4.1 points in 15.2 minutes a game. Not a lot of usage there. I've heard, he'd come off the bench at Indiana, but he would be a guy that would play on our bench that would be able to come in even late in games and be a good free throw shooter. I didn't look up his free throw shooting percentage, but he's just a good 3-point shooter, over 40% on 3-pointers. But he would be a guy that if he comes off the bench for Indiana, or maybe he would be a starter. I haven't watched a ton of him except for the games when Indiana played against Illinois, and he just always seemed to be a really good spot-up shooter where this guy's open and you got a dribble drive guy and he's open on the outside, he's going to knock him down, and that's what Indiana has needed. So his 23-24 campaign was his most productive campaign. He averaged 5.7 points, 20.1 minutes, and shot 38.9% on threes in this last season. So just under 40%, 38.9%. And Illinois won the Big Ten tournament. He made 61 three-pointers last season at Illinois. Really a lot less than I thought. He went to Homestead High School right here in Fort Wayne. So graduate of Homestead. So he'd be an Indiana guy coming in with Leal and Galloway. And do we have anybody else from the state of Indiana besides those two? Ja'Kai Newton. Well, C.J. Gunn is gone. So just be another Indiana guy, which people always eat that up when somebody's from Indiana. He has 1 season of eligibility remaining. Indiana currently has 3 open scholarships for next season. So Luke Goode, is everybody pumped up? And I apologize once again. I don't want to harp on it too bad, but I'm just kicking myself that I did that yesterday. So a comment that LL Coolray, and shout out to him, left yesterday, and he was kind of telling me some of the previous seasons, like the 01-02 season, Indiana shot 659 three-pointers. And I just went through a bunch of the different seasons, and I kind of wanted to get a good idea of over time, just how Indiana has trended over time on the three-point mark. Now, around the 08-09 season, Indiana hit like super, super low watermarks with a lot of their three-point shooting. 498. They only shot 498 three-pointers in 08-09. They shot 469 in 09-010 season. And that was about the low watermark. Then they went up to 546, 531, 637. That's how many they shot in the year when they were ranked number 1 the whole year, 637. And then as Tom Crean's time at Indiana came to a close, they shot more and more. The 14-15 season, and this is really the 14-15 season, you think about it, that's when the Steph Curry effect was starting to take hold. Because before that, the Golden State Warriors, they had lost to the Spurs many times in the playoffs. The three-point shooting, phobia that people started to come under this, started around that time, 14-15 season, because Indiana shot 786 threes in 14-15, and then in the 15-16 year, they shot 831. And then from that point on, Tom Crean's last year, they shot 776. Then Archie Miller's first year, that was really when the three-point shooting and just the overall shooting for the Hoosiers in general just kind of started going down the tubes. Because in 17-18 season, we shot 602. That ticked up to 676 in the 18-19 season. And then we saw it fall to 540 and 488. So, Archie Miller's teams got worse and worse. Shooting and the offense, everything. And I don't know if that, I did not like Archie Miller. I mean, he just seemed like not a very, hey, LL Coolray. Yeah, I was just going through all the numbers on here because we can definitely see this last like 8 years that Indiana's been playing, our 3-point shooting and just our overall shooting has kind of hit the water table a little bit, because sometimes in sports it can be really, really difficult to escape what people are saying about you. Like, I remember Isaiah Thomas saying this in a video about Indiana, because he was like, I wasn't that good of a shooter in high school. He's like, but I came to Indiana and the perception was everybody at Indiana can shoot. He's like, so I had to shoot good. And, Isaiah was not like, and the 3-point line was not even there back then. But he did turn himself into, a decent enough shooter when he was playing in Indiana. But that is kind of the perception that has surrounded these teams over, and we're kind of closing in on a decade of this same type of thing of not having like great outside shooting. So how can we buck that trend and get it going in the opposite direction? I mean, this is Indiana. We've always been good at shooting, and there's always people in the state of Indiana that are fantastic shooters. When I think about the 01-02 team, I always think about, how, AJ Moye could just like step out and, hit a shot. And just there were a lot of different guys that you felt comfortable with. They could take it if they were open, and they took them when they were open. They shot .659 that year, and that was before, the 3-point line became so eccentric, I guess I want to say. So, one thing, and we're going to talk about the Pacers here next. One thing watching the pro games, because I was watching it last night, and the Lakers game came on super, super late. But one thing you can definitely tell when you start watching pro games is how much quicker it is up and down the floor. Even up in the NBA, when it gets inside of Hornsby was the man. And Coverdale, at times Coverdale could get way deep and just chuck them in from deep too. But one thing when I'm watching these NBA games is so much different than college. In the last 3 minutes, like in the last 3 minutes of a college game, if your team's down by 6 or 8 points, you really feel like there are limited possessions left. If you make a false move here, you make a false move there, it can definitely go awry. And in the NBA, it just does not feel that same way. Within 3 minutes, you still feel like you have enough possessions that you're going to be able to, maybe recover from this, recover from that. You get a few defensive stops. You can really score like 6 or 8 points really, really quickly in the NBA. But this game tonight, Halliburton is going to have to show up. And the thing is, Milwaukee is not sleeping on the Pacers. From what we saw in that first game, Milwaukee is they're looking at this like, look, sometimes teams like the Pacers could fly in under the radar and come up and beat a team like that in game one. And that was not happening with Milwaukee, because look, the Pacers, they got some beef with them. They beat them in the play-in games. And then also early in the year, they had that whole incident where, so the Pacers always give whoever the rookie is on the team who makes the first shot, they get the game ball for that game. And Giannis, he wanted the ball because he hit some type of milestone or something like that. So he goes running back into the Pacers locker room. If you remember that happening, that was in, November or December. That seems like forever ago now. But so Giannis, these guys on Milwaukee, they have some critical beef with the Pacers. So they were ready. They were not sleeping on the Pacers at all. And they have a lot of experienced guys. Middleton, and I've rooted for Milwaukee the year when they won it in the championship. I mean, I was hoping Milwaukee would win that year. I've always liked Giannis as a player. I've always liked Dame Lillard as a player. And, Milwaukee's kind of got that. They've had that perception of, they got Lillard, that they're not playing well. They're not playing up to the expectations that many people thought that Milwaukee should. And, they've kind of taken a back seat to, Denver stepped up. And I think Milwaukee was a team that thought maybe they were going to have a short dynasty there. And the Pacers, they're just going to have to really show up. Siakam, I mean, he had a good game in the last game, but the Pacers shot like 20% from the outside. And so that's going to be the difference. It's going to have to really be it's going to have to be Halliburton. I do not know why I said that like that. And Siakam is going to have to show up again. I mean, Siakam has some experience in the playoffs, but it really does show you, even though these guys are NBA players who are, you'd think they're all seasoned, the home crowd, the away crowd, it plays more into it than you think, especially for these role players in the NBA. It's just hard to play when everybody's rooting against you, and it's going to be a whiteout at Milwaukee tonight. So the Pacers, hopefully they show up. Check out Bring the Juice Pacers podcast. I logged on into that the other day. He's doing a live stream on there. He does all, like, a lot of the Colts games, and that is coming up in a couple days as well. We're only like about 48 hours away from the draft right now, about 50 hours away, and we will be seeing who the Colts are going to be taking in the draft. So we got that coming up in Detroit. So very easy to go to. I'm not sure if I'm going to go to it or not, but sure it would be nice to see a big representation of the Colts. I know there are going to be a lot of Lions fans. There's probably going to be a ton of Bears fans there, because we know there's a lot of Bears fans, even though they stink. But it's going to be interesting to see that going on in Detroit. I think they're doing it like down by the river, so I'm not sure what they're using as the backdrop for. I've seen a few of the different places, but yeah, the Bucs showed up looking for blood in that game, and it just seemed lights out for the Pacers. That was tough to watch. I'm thinking there's going to be a big turnaround, because the Bucs they're not old, but we'll see if they can keep that type of intensity if the Pacers come out with an extra level. And they got to up their defense. I mean, I know the Pacers played very little defense in the regular season. That's where it changes in the NBA playoffs. That's why I start watching more NBA basketball now. Like, you can't just wave at guys going by all game long. You got to get stops. And you got to get stops in the second halves of these games to really, like, make something happen. But, yeah, I've seen if Ballard trades back for somebody, I don't know if he sits at 15 and he takes a corner, then I'd be okay with that. And I'd be fine with Arnold, or any of those top two DBs if he takes them. Or, I mean, I've really been looking more for them to get a good offensive piece, because that's where I think the Colts need it, and I think that will help AR stay healthy going forward. So thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Indiana Sports Connection. And until next time, stay classy out there, Colts and Hoosier fans.